Please mute. Somebody is speaking behind you. Please mute yourself.
Hello, auntie.
Hello, audience. Please mute yourself. I'm able to hear a lot of noise. Yes. మీ ఆడియోస్ బంద్ చేయండి అమ్మా, ఎవరో మాట్లాడుతూ ఉన్నారు కంటిన్యూస్ గా. ఆయుషనా ఎవరు జాయిన్ అయ్యారు స్టూడెంట్స్? Okay, now I'm able, it's muted. Okay, so media is acting as a watchdog of the society and it is working for the benefit or for the public good. So here, journalism is a profession that might not disseminate all the information that is happening throughout the globe, but a limited amount of information only they can disseminate for the benefit of the mass media audiences in a efficient, attractive, and relatively cheap and convenient way. So, for example, if you want to know what is happening in United States, you can't go and witness the information over this which is happening. So, but here the mass media is something that is disseminating what is happening there, and we are able to know what is happening there. So, and media institution, like if you see the newspaper, the production cost of your newspaper must be more, but you are maybe getting the newspaper at a cheaper rate than the production cost. And the advertising revenue, what they get, the newspapers or broadcast media channels, because of that, they are providing the content with a cheaper price than the actual price of the production cost. For example, if it is a television channel, if you want to just make a program, a magazine program, etc., if you have to reach the spot, you have to carry your cameras and you have to hire your television crew, etc., to cover the beats, etc., and it takes time and you have to travel to the destination, and everything needs a budget, but you are free of cost. You might be able to watch those kind of news which is presented by your television networks. So here the advertising is something, the revenue that is provided to the media institutions. Because of that, the media provides a lot of information for the benefit of the public at a cheaper rate or of free of cost. And media acts as a watchdog of the society, and what we have, media is also considered as the fourth estate of your fourth estate, and it is acting as a watchdog of the other pillars of the democracy, like judiciary, administrative, legislature, etc. So here people are becoming accountable, as the media is an institution that can expose the irregularities or corruption or scandals which are happening in the society. So to bring a kind of transparency among the working of the institutions which are there in the society, the media is something which plays an important role. And media is something that bridges the gap between the common man and also the government by making the government know about the people's problems, etc. And in the previous class also, we have discussed that media acts as a bridge between a doctor and patient, and whatever is needed by individuals in the society, by the way of providing information or instruction, you then by providing entertainment or information instruction, it can also transmit the culture from one generation to the other by providing a lot of information and mobilizing the people, human resources, promoting the national heritage and culture. All that is part of your mass media or the journalism profession that disseminates the information. So here, like the distribution channels, what we have, the media is something that distributes a lot of information, and also it is providing the new information. It relates to the innovations which are being may be brought in the public. Like innovation is a new idea, what we consider that is something new which is perceived as individuals in the society. So media platforms use these innovations to disseminate. So media is a platform where these new innovations are communicated among the members of the social system and people come to adopt the new innovations. It can be providing like during the COVID, wearing a mask, maintaining the social distance, etc., is a idea that is disseminated through all those platforms, including the social media, online journalism, then televisions, newspaper, and also the radio. And people have uh, came to adopt that new information as it adds advantages and it protects the individuals and the family members from affected by the COVID. So here, journalism is a profession that is something that disseminates the information, whatever is relevant for the public or which is necessary for the individuals. So not only media provides information that is relates to a minor inconveniences which happens in the society, but in the larger scale, it provides information that may directly or indirectly affect the public life. So journalism is where the information is communicated in the form of the news. So the 5 Ws and 1 H, what we call who, what, where, when, and why, and how. This is all these answers for these questions are provided in your lead. Lead is a particular first paragraph of your news story that will convey a lot of information relates to this who, what, where, when, why, and how the news happened or the incident took place. So here, a successful communication also involves transmission of information to the given audience in a way they understand or perceive the same way the source or an individual is intended to communicate. So, as the source is not an individual, if it comes to the mass media, source is a organization, and this organization is providing, transmitting the messages for the audience the way they perceive or understand. So the intention of the source and the receiver will be same. And communication is sometimes flowing only in one direction, or like if it is mass communication, or communication also can be a two-way process. And here, generally, if it is a media institution, as it is part of the mass communication, where the information is disseminated, and later on if you want to give your feedback, maybe with the help of writing a letter to the editor of the concerned newspaper or broadcast media channels, you can express your opinion. And depending on the time or depending on the space which is available in your newspapers, etc., then that can be accommodated in your papers. So here, while providing all this news in the interest of the public, the media also maintains the public trust. Trust is nothing but the believability of your newspaper or a magazine or the broadcast media channels. So generally, whatever may be happening, if you don't maintain this objectivity or etc., then nobody will bother about what you present for the public. So it is something where the ethical principles comes into the pitch, and based on the ethical principles of journalism only, a person has to work and disseminate the information. So here, media is something provides information in the public interest. So here, the public interest is nothing but where there is instances or issues which are happening like a crime or anything, a serious issues, etc., then the media brought that information to the attention of the public. It also protects the public health by providing a lot of information relates to the health of the individuals, and it also protects the public health and safety of the individuals in the society by alerting the people about the various expected dangers in the society. And it also prevents the public from being misled by the organizations or the government or maybe the NGOs, whatever it could be. So here, if a person is well informed of the information or an issue, etc., they will come to know all sides of that particular issue and they will protect themselves. So here, the journalists are acting in the interest of the public, and in a way they also, by providing this information, in the process of providing that information, they also do follow certain ethical principles. And when uh, the ethical principles are followed by these journalists, they will provide accurate, valuable information for the public. And the sources of information is the journalist gets a lot of information from various news sources. It can be a government, it can be a municipality, or it can be individual sources, whatever it can be. And wherever the public interest is involved, then they will provide that information for the benefit of the public. So here, the elements that the journalists look into for covering the beats. So beat is a particular area generally a journalist will cover for the benefit of the public. Here, how they cover, why they cover the news. So you might have already learned about the news values also. So here, when they assess the story, so they look after all this information, like power elites, stories which are concerning powerful individuals, organizations, and institutions. For example, anything which happens to your uh, chief minister or maybe the prime minister Narendra Modi or the president, etc., then the stories comes into your newspaper. They are covered by your broadcast media, and the same way the organization, reputed organizations, government organizations and institutions, etc., are your places where generally the news can come and from where you gather the information and disseminate. And celebrity information stories which are concerning about the people who are having some kind of famous, like the public figures, they can be discharging their government duties, or maybe the celebrities like film stars, etc., or maybe cricketers, or the individuals who have some kind of fame. So they are maybe into any kind of business also. So that would be covered in your newspapers or broadcast media. And entertainment, anything which can entertain the public, like it can be a human interest stories or relates to the animals, unfolding drama, or anything which offers a kind of treatment or entertains the people, etc. All that information can get into the news pages. And surprise stories, unexpected things if happens anywhere, then that could be the part of the story which you are concerned about. And bad news, so, as a common person, bad news is not what we consider want to know, but always it has a news value, and the media people will cover those beats for the benefit of the public. It can include conflicts, tragedies, or it can be relates to your communal violence or anything. And good news stories with positive overtones also will be covered by the media, like rescues and cures, etc. And magnitude, stories perceived as sufficiently significant either in the number of people who are involved or in the in potential impact. So if there are number of people who are involved, for example, if a plane accident takes place or a bus accident takes place, etc., where a number of people are involved. So humans will have a curiosity to know what happened to the people. So those kind of incidents also will get into the pages. And relevant stories about the issues, groups, nations perceived to be relevant to the audience, whatever is happening in the nation and what is happening to the groups, and the stories relates to various issues also, as it will have direct or indirect impact on the audience. Because of that, those stories also gets into the pages. And follow-up stories, so stories which are already discussed in the news or newspapers, in the previous editions, etc. That is also will be covered in the form of follow-up stories in the newspapers. And media agenda is nothing but the stories which the media wants to set for the public, or the order of priority which is set by the media institution. And either way, we also have our own agenda, what we call the public agenda. Depending on our interest only, we can read the stories, and we can also may not read the other stories which you think that is not important for your life. And the media might be prioritizing the news in terms of the headlines and also the placement of the stories in your broadcast media. So there will be a run order in the new in the broadcast media. Run order is nothing but if it is a 30-minute bulletin, from the beginning to the end of your 30 minutes, what are the news which an anchor reads, etc. That is done now. So here, the most important news is read in the beginning and the least important news at the end of your news bulletin. The same way, the news in the newspaper also, the stories are placed in a way. The most important stories are placed above the fold. So where the newspaper folds, above the newspaper, the important issues are discussed. And a front page news, like if it is covered in 8 columns, etc., what we call the banner, under banner headline, the story which we consider is as the most important story of the day. So here, looking at the headlines, the font sizes, looking at the pictures, looking at the content or the how many columns they have accommodated, etc. You can come to know whether the story is most important or not. But that is the importance is set by your media, not by your individuals. So the front page, like if something happens to prime minister also, if an individual, if I am not interested, I am not bothered what happens to the prime minister. But if I want to know only, then I can read the story. But inside pages, if there is a human interest story, if I have a curiosity, then I can read the story and skip this prime minister's issue. So that way, the media is something which is setting an agenda, what we call that media agenda. And but the people also set their own agenda, what we call the public agenda, and based on that only they will come to read that kind of news stories. And here, under your 9.3.1, you have comment is free and facts are sacred. So facts must not be tampered with your views. So as an individual, if you are working for any media organization, you might have your own prejudices, your own views, but those views or prejudices or maybe the attitude should not be reflected when you are covering news. So what you cover for the public, you have to report in a complete objective way without distorting the news. So journalists should not mix his views with the news. So the journalist should be careful enough in clearly distinguishing between the two. So, for example, if a communal violence took place and if you belong to a religious community, even though you belong, because you are a professional journalist, you cannot, that religious context or religious view should not be reflected through your reporting. So, you have to provide a complete, objective, fair, balanced information for your audience. And when covering these news, you have to maintain high professional standards as a responsible person or a journalist and as the editor of your newspaper, etc. It is the duty of the editor to maintain high standards of professional journalism while covering all the news which you present for the public. So here, the journalists also have the freedom of speech and expression. That is, it is also a fundamental right of every citizen in this country to have this freedom of speech and expression, but it has to be safeguarded. And here, the freedom, what you have, you cannot misuse. So a journalist should work with great sense of responsibility towards the citizens whom they are serving. So they have to only present the facts for the journalists, not the views which an individual will have. So here, the media institutions have a social responsibility, and here journalism is a mirror of the society. But unfortunately, nowadays, if you see a lot of content which is presented through the newspapers or broadcast media, that we are some way or the other feel that it is not so objective information they are presenting. So they are sometimes provides one side of that particular issue. For example, if you look at Namaste Telangana or T News, anything which is a positive coverage is provided to the KCR, KTR, and his ministry, etc. But the other side, the critical view of their functioning is not provided in those kind of newspaper and channels. So unfortunately, but some of the newspapers provides accurate information for the public. So journalists should be fair, balanced, and truthful, inspiring in way. They have to present the news for the public. Social good. So it is also a responsibility of the journalists to look after the well-being of the society through their reporting. So what are the qualities of a journalist? So journalist is a person who actually uh, uh, gathering the news, selecting the news, presenting the news, and also processing the news. So a person is the one who is writing the stories for the benefit of the public. So here, the some of the qualities which are required for a good journalist is a person should have a knowledge, vast knowledge about various subjects. That includes law, religion, science, business, politics, war, economics, whatnot. So, a person should have fair knowledge about all these issues while they cover the different kinds of fields. And he should also be interested in knowing philosophy, music, sports, and also the cultural activities. So even there are different journalists who exclusively cover the sports beats, music, and other related politics, etc. But as a journalist, we should have fair knowledge about all that issues which are happening throughout the globe. So a journalist, if has to be a good journalist, he should be a reader, a good reader of a newspaper, magazine, journals, books, periodicals, etc. So, if you want to gain knowledge about anything, the sky is the limit. And journalist, as a common man, there is no need for us to know all the things which are happening in the society. But as journalists should know what is happening throughout the globe. We should have a fair knowledge about everything. Okay, and a person should have a strong desire for learning new things and new things to increase his own knowledge. So he should be visionary and also resourceful. That whatever, if he, even though he do not know about certain things, he should have a strong desire to learn those new concepts or new subjects or things in his life. He should have a curiosity to learn all these things. And he should be strong, have strong determination. So then only if he has a strong determination, he can succeed in his career. He should be mentally prepared to work longer hours and do hard work to reach his goals. So here, journalism profession is not like a 5 to 8, 6 o'clock job. So, but a journalist should be working to meet the deadline. So he will be having a lot of pressure on his shoulders, and he has to complete his stories within the deadlines. And he might not have a flexible hours to work in the media institution based on their shifts they work. So journalists should also have a lot of patience and strong determination also. So here, journalists should adjust with the times. So it is in the journalism profession, a journalist might need to travel a lot in one city or to the other city, or and he might not get accommodation, or the weather may not support. If he want to cover the war situations, etc., he might not even get the basic necessity facilities, whatever is required to survive in those kind of situations. So here he has to adjust with all kinds of situations, and he should have mentally and physically prepared to cover all those kinds of beats, even though there is a risk for his own life. He should have a passion to report for his own newspaper or broadcast media. And it also, or he also needs to travel a lot uh, to strange places also to meet different kinds of people also. But to he should adjust with all kinds of situations and cover the beach. Then a person who wish to enter into the profession called journalism should have a lot of guts and courage. For example, if you are reporting like a crisis or communal violence situations, etc., or maybe public demonstrations or situations where people are protesting, etc. So your life is also going to be at risk. So in those kind of situations also, as a professional journalist, you should have courage to go and report those kind of situations. So there may be a lathi charge, police firing, and also tear gas. You may experience all these kinds of things, and you should have a stamina to physically to go and reach those spots. And for example, if there is a train accident happens in a remote forest area, but there you can't even travel in car or a bike, etc., then you have to walk through your to the destination and you have to report for your newspaper or broadcast media. So in all kinds of situations, you have to manage your own self and you have to report for your media organizations. And the progress and success of a journalist depends on his own. So most of the time, a journalist should be capable and he should survive the profession for a longer time if he has a strong determination. So the duties of nothing but journalist educate the public about the events and issues. Just now I said, the media journalists are the one who reports for the public. So they may risk their own life, but they cover the beats for the benefit of the public. So he has to gather information from different kinds of sources and present the news for the public in a fair, objective, and balanced way. So even in terms of interviewing, etc., the expert sources, he has to dig into the stories and he has to get clarification and he has to do a lot of research before they disseminate the information for the public. So here, before they present, they have to gather the accurate information from the sources, and he has to check, verify the information before that is being written for your newspapers. And even a news article is going by a byline by the first one journalist. The here it requires a lot of collaboration with the other individuals also. And here the journalist needs strong communication skills to so that they can persuade the sources to talk to them and provide the information based required by the journalist. The journalist has to provide well-researched, well-balanced, accurate information and the stories for the readers or the listeners and broadcast media audiences. And journalists also must be very honest in presenting the news for the public. So here, as that is the role of your journalist and the journalism profession. So here, when it comes to the media ethics or the ethical principles which a journalist has to follow. So like media is expanding very fast and there are many channels which are running into 24 into 7 basis. And here, the media profession is where the professionals are working in the media organizations. In certain situations, they will be in dilemma to whether to cover a news or not. So here, like each profession have their own ethics, medical field or any other field, the media professionals also have ethical principles that they follow while covering the bits. And we have NBA News Broadcasters Association, and we also have the PCI, Press Council of India. They have provided with the guidelines to be followed by the journalists while they cover different kinds of beats for the public. So here, the ethics, the word that is derived from the word called ethos, nearly 2,500 years ago in ancient Greek and many other societies. So the ethics deals with what is right or and what is wrong. Okay, and it involves the character and conduct of individuals and institutions. So the ethics, the branch of philosophy that deals with the moral aspects of life. And these ethics are non-mandatory principles and the guidelines that a person has to follow when they are working in a profession. So here, as just now I said, media channels are emerging and there are channels, we have 24 into 7 basis. And here, the principles of ethics and of good practice address the specific challenges the professional journalists will face in newsrooms while covering these kind of news stories. Whether the news story has to be reported, covered in the newspaper or not, the way it has to be covered, the impact of these stories on the society, on the individuals, etc., the implications they have to keep in mind while they present the story for the public. So in newsrooms, if television channels and news portals, if a person is working, they face certain ethical issues. So whether the story should go or not, whether a story has to be killed or not, how it is going to affect the society and all the stakeholders who are involved in the story. For example, if you want to report a rape case of a child, whether you have to disclose the information, whether you have to kill the story as it is going to embarrass the family and to whom the girl belongs to, or what kind of impact the girl will have in future. Based on that, you have to whether to cover the story or not, that comes into picture. So here, the code of ethics, if you follow while covering all these kinds of news, that enhances the credibility and reliability, and it also enhances the reputation of the journalists and the news organizations for whom these journalists will work. It also ensures the freedom with responsibility. As you are following certain ethical principles, it ensures that your freedom is protected as you are following the ethical principles with responsibility. And when you follow these ethical principles, the journalist also gets professional satisfaction, and it also limits the government intervention. So because of that, these ethical principles are important for the journalists to be followed in the newsrooms. So these news organizations cannot survive if they do not have the credibility. So why we only watch certain news channels? Why we reject the other news channels? Because they are providing the news, one side of that news, then might not be providing the critical viewpoints of that particular news stories which they deal with. So because of that, if the news organizations follows these ethical principles, they survive in the media profession. So here, the freedom also the media enjoys. Then, as just now I said, the media institutions, the same way as we have the freedom of speech and expression, the media institutions also have the freedom of speech and expression. But the journalists who are working in the media, because they are disseminating the information for the larger audience, they have a special responsibility while they cover the news. So in those kind of situations, there is a need for following the ethical principles. There is a theory called social responsibility theory that speaks about that the media have a social responsibility and it has to serve the individuals with the information which is needed and with a caution. So gossip, sensationalism should not be present through your reporting. So here, the social responsibility theory was emerged from the Hutchins Commission's report that was headed by Robert M. Hutchins. Because of that, that is also called as Hutchins Commission. And the commission, this is also called as the Commission on Freedom of the Press. So when they inquired about the status of the media in the media, they came to know about the gossip, sensationalism which were present in the media institutions, and based on the report, they came up with the principles that how a media has to function in disseminating the information. So the principles includes that media have obligations to the society, and they have the media ownership is a public trust, and media should be truthful, accurate, fair, objective, and relevant information it has to present for the public. The media should provide a forum for the ideas. The media should be free, but it should be self-regulating within its functioning. Media should follow the code of ethics and professional standards while they cover the different kinds of fields. And or some circumstances, the society may also intervene in public interest. Media has an obligation to society. Media ownership is not a consumer company, and media is for the public. So it affects public. And as the media institutions have a social responsibility, it has to mold the opinion of the public. So media should have the credibility. Then when it comes to the journalistic ethics, if you see the PCI guidelines, there is a lot of guidelines are there. Just the information you can also download from your websites if you want. So specific guidelines are issued by the Press Council of India that we call the Guide to Journalistic Ethics, that was finally revised in the year 1995 by Justice P.B. Sawant. So here, the first most important thing, ethical principle for the media is that media has to provide people with the news, views, comments, and information on matters of public interest in a fair, accurate, unbiased, sober, and decent manner. So before a journalist disseminates the information through the media channels or the publication of any information, they have to verify the facts. Based on the facts only, a journalist has to report for the news organizations and that would be going to be disseminated for the public. So when anything, for example, if it is leading to defamation, so defamation is nothing but damaging the reputation of an individual or organization, etc. So if you are reporting a biased information and a person is feels that his reputation is damaged by your media, then they can file a suit in your high courts for damages under the defamation. So caution must be taken by the journalists before they report for the newspapers. And where it comes into the page that the pre-publication verification of the reports is necessary. And privacy, when you are dealing with the privacy issues, as the Supreme Court of India said that right to privacy should be considered as a fundamental right of every individual in this country under Article 21 of the Indian Constitution that deals with the right to life. So under right to life, under right to equality, and under Article 19, freedoms, etc., the right to privacy should be protected. So here, as the media, it do not have any, so the media should not invade the privacy of individuals unless it is outweighed by the genuine overriding public interest. So if there is no public interest is involved, then the media should not invade or should not cover the incidents. Okay. Oh. So maybe, okay. So here, the privacy, again, when you are reporting on various issues that relates to the privacy of your subjects, then, okay. So here, while reporting also the rape victims, or maybe it is relates to sexual violence on the children or women, etc., or raising doubts about the character of women or the children, etc. Then the photographs, first thing, the photographs should not be published. The names and other particulars which leads to the identity of the victims should not be disclosed by the media. And when the media provides or maybe reports any information and there are factual errors or mistakes which are detected and confirmed, it is the duty of the media institutions to present or to provide an apology statement or a regret in case of serious lapse which is there in the presentation of the news by the media organization. And the right of reply, for example, when your newspaper publishes any information, non-publication of any information or publication of any information, if that is violation of your guidelines which are provided by the Press Council of India, in those kind of cases, an individual can write to the letter to the concerned news organization editor. And here it is the duty of the editor to cross-verify the information and publish a rejoinder stating that publication of any information or non-publication of information, how it is affected the individuals, and an apology statement also has to be carried in the newspaper or broadcast media. And it is when it comes to the letters to the editor, an editor has to print the letters which they receive from the readers regarding maybe appreciating the news which is printed in the newspaper, or maybe it is relates to appreciation or maybe criticizing the newspaper stand. If they receive any letters from the readers of the particular newspaper, etc., it is the duty of the editor to publish those letters in the column which is provided under the letters to the editors. Then when it comes to the covering the communal violence. So communal violence is nothing but the clashes which takes place between the religious communities or ethnic communities uh, based on their religious or maybe when they belong to a community or based on their ethnicity. If the communal violence takes place, it is the duty of the journalists to publish first only verified information only they have to publish. Based on rumors, no individual should publish any news to the newspapers or a news should not be carried in the broadcast media. And provocative, sensational headlines should be avoided by the media organizations. So, because the provocative headlines and sensational headlines may invoke the sentiments of these religious communities and further the communal violence may takes place. So to avoid that, as media have a social responsibility, it also has a responsibility to promote communal peace during the communal violence situations. So be, it should not sensationalize the news headlines. And the headlines which you print as a story which you are, it is related to the communal violence, etc. The headline must reflect and justify the matter which is printed under the headlines. Because of that, you should not use the provocative, sensational headlines. And when you are carrying the headlines, like allegations made in the form of statement by an organization head, etc., then that should be carried in the quotation marks. And you have to identify the source who said. And along with that, you should have that evidence. If a person claims that his reputation is damaged through your publication, you should have evidence where he made the statement. Can be a bite or it can be a clipping or where he said, etc. That you have to keep as a evidence. Then if asked in court, you have to submit that evidence. And plagiarism, the journalist should avoid uh, maybe printing any information or any writings as their own, but the ideas are not his own. So here, copying of any ideas of somebody else is a crime, and it is a unethical practice by the journalist, and the journalist should avoid publishing the plagiarized content in their newspapers as their own information. And when you are recording the interviews or telephone conversations, etc., during the interviews, etc., you should take permission or the consent from the person who is speaking. And it is the duty of the journalist to avoid obscenity, avoid presentation of obscenity and vulgarity in the newspapers. So even the advertisements which you receive from different kinds of sources, etc., you have to reject, or if you are publishing those kind of ads, if it is against the code of ethics which are provided by the PCI, Press Council of India, or NBA, etc., you should not publish those kind of ads. And where women are being like we have indecent representation of women, so the act prohibits the indecent representation of women in any form. It can be in paintings, or it can be in ads, or it can be in the form of anything, or in television or anywhere. So here it is the duty of the media to avoid publishing this woman in nude or semi-nude and vulgar uh, kind of obscene manner, as it affects the public. Uh, Glorifying violence to be avoided. The media and newspaper journalists should avoid presenting the acts of violence, armed robberies, and terrorist attacks, etc., in a manner that glorifies their acts or death in the eyes of the public. But Yes, of course, the media also sometimes involves where they are reporting a crime. Suppose a girl is murdered, and the media institutions go and ask the family how they feel. So actually, they are in their own kind of dilemma. Uh, the media persons also embarrass the family and ask them to provide their opinion regarding that. And the media also should avoid anything which leads to the content of courts. So any information that is related to your courts, the judgments has to be provided for the public in a way the judgments are pronounced. And photography, photographs of dead bodies of the victims and crimes, etc., where you should not intrusion through your photography into the personal grief that is going to likely hurt the sentiments, etc., should be avoided by the media. And when you are dealing with the caste, religious, and communal disclosures, etc., then a person should not be identified with his religion. For example, a victim or maybe a culprit should not be identified with his caste or religion or community. So media should avoid disclosure of this information when they present the news for the public, like disclosing a person like a Harishan committed a crime, or a tribal person committed this crime, or maybe he is being raped, etc. So it causes embarrassment, and it also hurts the sentiments of the people. So the media has a special responsibility, and they have to should not identify the people with the caste, religion, or community disclosures. So it is also the editor's responsibility, whatever is printed in the newspaper or which is carried in the broadcast media, whatever from the beginning to the end of your newspaper, and the news 24 into 7, whatever the news channels you have, everything which is provided from the beginning to the end of your news, morning to the night, it is the responsibility of the editor to cross-check, verify what they are presenting, how they are presenting for the public. And when you receive, as a journalist, any information from a source in confidence, if a source asks you to not to reveal the name of your source, then you have to maintain the confidentiality, and you should not disclose the names of your sources while you report the news for the newspapers. So here, if it is asked by a court when a case is filed and you have received in confidence from a person any information, and you quoted it as off the record, a friend of person said this information, etc., then it is the duty of yourself to only disclose the information in court if asked by the judge. But the names should not be disclosed, as it is a ethical principle you have to follow. And media has to provide fair, balanced version of any information. So how this fairness is maintained when you do not include your own views or your own prejudices or maybe your attitudes while writing your story, then in that way your fairness can be maintained. And a news should be objective. So anything which is objective information, that we only consider as the news. And you have to report the news in an objective manner. And impartiality. When you are including various sources in your news story, for example, if you are covering a murder, so you have to take into account the family version. You have to speak with your police. You should speak with the eyewitnesses. You should speak with all the stakeholders who are involved in the story. And in that way, you can impartially present the objective, balanced information relates to your particular story you present for the public. Then media journalists should also have a personal integrity and they should respect the privacy of the individuals while they cover the news. For example, if you are exposing the private affairs of a celebrity, then like an ordinary person, we have right to privacy. It is considered, it is a what you call the fundamental right of a citizen. Now, after the Supreme Court of India said that right to privacy should be considered as a fundamental right of every citizen in this country under Article 21. So you have to respect the privacy of the individuals. If you are reporting on the celebrities or maybe the famous personalities, their affairs, their private information, even though the degree of privacy might be different from one individual to the other, the celebrity might not have the same kind of privacy what we have. So here, but the family members have their own privacy. So you should not dig into your news story and relate that information to the family or other members. So you should not disclose any information relates to the family of your public figure, even though you are writing about the public figure. And here, whatever you are presenting, the news, views, comments, etc., should be presented for the public in a fair, decent manner so that people can consume your content without any kind of disturbance, or it may not affect the public taste, public good taste. Okay. So these are the principles, the ethical principles a journalist has to follow. So I'm leaving the session now. Okay. This might be your last class, I believe. So we haven't completed something called your traditional folk media yet, and the history part we have not yet covered. But you can log into your Browse live 9 channel where the lessons might be recorded earlier. There we might have discussed about the history of journalism and the history of press in Telangana also. So just watch those programs. Okay. Then I'm leaving the session. Thank you.